Hello. Hola a todos. Bilingual video bilingüe. Excepto la última parte. Except for the last part. Because I'm going to read something. Porque voy a leer algo que escribí en Facebook para compartirlo. Something I wrote on Facebook to share. Oh my God, it is hot. It is hot. Hace un calor increíble. Quería mostrar un poco, a ver qué tal me salió. Voy a aprovechar que esta es la hora en que entra el sol. Son 3 meses. I'm going to call this video Luminosity. El video de la iluminación. Because I want to show, quiero mostrar if I succeeded, a ver si tuve éxito, en cómo hice la habitación especialmente planeada para estos 2 meses en que entra un poquito de sol, specifically for these 2 months in which I get a little bit of sunlight coming in from like desde las 3, from 3 o'clock in the afternoon, desde las to about another hour or so. About 3 hours anyways, and I chose that color, sort of a vibrant light blue. Entonces quería mostrar a ver si tuvo éxito. I put mirrors, espejos por todos lados. There, espejos ahí, espejos en la esquina, espejos ahí, mirrors. And then also puse los placares, I put the closets like that. I used this white door, usé las puertas blancas para reflejar, porque antes estaba ahí el placar. When I came to the apartment, cuando llegué al apartamento, el placar estaba ahí. Entonces yo lo puse acá. I put it on this side to maximize the square footage of space close to the window. Lo moví para que hubiese más lugar cerca de la ventana. Bueno, y después puse estos espejitos y qué sé yo. So here are my family of finches, la familia de... ¿cómo se llaman? Castellano. Lo sabía, me olvidé. Finches. Los tuve que sacar del calor. I had to take them away from the window porque se estaban cocinando. They were baking, the poor things, hanging up there, colgados ahí arriba. So I bring them in for 3 or 4 hours. Por 4 horas más o menos los pongo acá junto a Kalele, next to Kalele. Look at Kalele, she's panting. Está jadeando, pobrecita. Gorda, ¿hace calor? Saluda a todos. Say hi to everybody. Yeah, sure. She's like, Okay, so basically that's what I wanted to show. I wanted to show the results. And I still have that light on, God knows why. Because, see, I put that light there. Puse esa luz ahí para compensar durante el día. En el invierno, especialmente cuando entra un poquito de luz, to compensate this dark corner, que haya también luz en este rincón durante el día, porque si no parece que tengo una cosita chiquita de luz acá y todo el apartamento está oscuro, and the rest of the apartment is dark. A ver, me enojo, Creo que ya lo miré esto, no sé, me hago el boludo. ¿Qué dice ahí? Islas Malvinas, ¿no? Bueno. I have to turn the light off. Apagamos la luz. And that's it. I'm going to read now something I wrote because also that's what this video is about. Voy a leer algo que escribí en inglés. ¿Qué hago? ¿Lo traduzco al castellano? Maybe I should. I'll try to translate it. But I have to read it, let's see. I'll just read it all in English, and then if I'm able to. This is kind of important because it's a premise understanding at the very base of the social discussion, the political debate, the civil reasoning and logic of the subject. Underneath all of that, this is something that is not the case, it is not understood, and so everything that is built on it is built on, there could have been several base foundations on this, but that wouldn't have the same purpose. But this is a simple one, and I think that if you get this, then you'll see how a lot of other things are misaligned and are just wrong, structurally incorrect in how we're thinking about it. And so it says, and they agree, by the way, right? 6 females and 3 males. I got them to balanced out in a way that they don't fight. There's one that keeps bullying everybody, and I'm always scolding them, and then they stop. I don't want it to be hell for the rest, okay. So it says basically, yes, homosexuality has always been around, and it has always been around in the animal kingdom. And yes, it has often been compellingly interesting, and even some people want to follow what I read now. Okay. Interesting and even included in various forms and cultures throughout the ages. It's just something anyone can plausibly experience for the fact that we all share the same human sexuality, though not everyone may feel as comfortable or as interested in experiencing it. In fact, our single historical record shows us that most of us throughout history have never found it something we want to pursue. This said, aversion, discomfort, offense, observation of something peculiar, intuitively questioned or seen as suspect, unease, and so forth, have also always been associated to homosexuality. It is inherent in its nature. It's got a dual nature, in other words, for reasons that actually we could scientifically understand. Both are inherent in its nature. Simply put, a positive and a negative, an attractive force and an almost repelling force, if not worse. So they both come hand in hand as part of the nature of homosexuality itself. We know this. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, that's because you've been religiously indoctrinated, and they're the ones that the church has miseducated society." Right? We know this because there are many cultures around the world who do not raise their children in any kind of anti-homosexual religiosity, or social condemnation, or any religion at all, sometimes for that matter, other than their tribal or ancient spiritual beliefs. And yet you still find in their societies and communities, once a person is put face forward to the idea, you take a guy and make a proposal, a misgiving by the majority of their people that can... Oh, wait, did I forget a verb here? And yet you still find in their societies and communities, once a person is paid forward to the idea, a misgiving by the majority of their people that can be as little as a confusion or lack of understanding, what are you doing, to an intriguing, strong aversion, I'm gonna kill you, or rejection that leads to anger if the matter is pushed. Whoops. If the matter... Whoops, I got lost. Even though they may have never as much as contemplated the possibility of that being an expression of human sexuality, which is kind of normal, actually, outside of modern Western society. It seems that homosexuality occurred mostly in societies that advanced culturally and in the in the sciences and in various ways. Basic, more stably underdeveloped or what have you, primal societies don't really seem to give it that much thought. Or if they do, they just take it for what it is. In any case, so we socially, okay, so even if the matter is pushed, even though they may have never so much as contemplated that being an expression of human sexuality. So their reaction is completely natural and spontaneous. So what does this tell us? It tells us that we groom ourselves to think about things according to how we seek to learn to handle them. We socially educate ourselves to view things and to reason these things and their solutions in specified ways through conceptual ideologies built around a set of autonomously standing, valid or not so valid principles and values. In other words, we want to make a logical, civil kind of civil discourse about how to solve a situation in society, and so we grab principles, principle of the individual rights, for example, of human rights and my freedom to blah blah blah, and so we start sticking them into our greater argument in order to sustain the conclusion we want to achieve in resolving, or the resolution we want to achieve. To the point we become convinced of understanding something in certain ways, which in turn may result in giving us a strong self-invested authority in fighting against those who don't see things as we do, because we so much needed to settle something that perhaps was very difficult to settle for a long, long time. And so we don't want to move from this. We no longer want to move from the stability we believe to have achieved. I'm not going to rewrite it, but I can learn something about where I need to stress more. And yet, as such, very easily we will simply, that I should correct. As such, very easily we will simply and plainly be wrong about what we have come to believe, as, for example, the case of the idea that people who legitimately feel right about their misgivings towards homosexuality and have doubts and questions, or want to turn it around, or want to hold their ground and say, I don't want that for myself or for my children or what have you, must be quashed, changed, or are automatically being harmful to others. Why? If that aversion, rejection has always been part of natural society, why are we obligating people to accept it? It seems unnatural, going against something that arises naturally in people. We're obligating them to swallow the pill when it has never been a natural thing to swallow that pill. In other words, we may all need to try and be more understanding, compassionate, respectful, and humble towards lives we know nothing about. But that does not mean that such real feelings in people are not valid and are not felt for good reasons that have an actual scientific explanation to them. Perhaps actually makes sense that there would be unnatural aversion for obvious reasons. It's funny that scientists are not allowed to elaborate on this part of the brain. Perhaps we need instead to, and really it's fascinating when you think about it. Well, okay, let me just finish. Perhaps we need instead is to really, what instead is to really start rethinking the whole shebang from scratch, because it may be the case that, given what I explained before, for the last 50 years of logical civil ideology building, was simply constructed on false premises and unsubstantiating grounds, very much a real possibility. So yeah, I think the subject of homosexuality is fascinating. It's interesting because it's the only natural part of our physiological brain, the only natural part of human beings, of the functions of the human body, in other words, that don't have a singular forward functioning understanding like everything else does. It starts somewhere and it ends somewhere else, including sexuality. Sexuality starts one place and then it leads to the birth of the child, and you eat through your mouth and you poop through your butt. Everything has a singular flow in its function, except homosexuality, because it has this dual nature. It has a part that doesn't settle, that's not quite right, it's not stable. It makes people question or get angry or be oddly fascinated in a quirky way. They kind of get giddy and stupid because it's so illogical, and yet they end up finding it fun. And it's very unstable, and it has both these currents. Both aspects are very much defining of the homosexual behavior of human sexuality. And we've never actually broke it down like that scientifically. What we have become obsessed with instead throughout all of history, and not so different today in modern times, is with the focusing on the individual. Like that person does it, or that person was born that way, or that person, promotes it, or that person is messed up, born wrong, or that person needs to be free and to express it and be themselves. And it's always this obsession with hanging it, for good or for bad, on a person, on the individual. And yet, what is interesting about that is that sexuality, more than any other human bodily function, sexuality is very much connected to the community, collective. I mean, our children prove it, because they tend to not want to learn sexuality, the experience, the manner in which they will express themselves sexually from their parents. They may learn how to be a profession from their dad, but when it comes to sexuality, it's more likely we will go with our peers and we will see what's going on in the world, and we will bounce it off people our age and start experimenting that way. And so society is very necessary, and also how the self, the sense of self and my sexual self, develops through outside forces, through how my parents treated me as a kid, how my peers in school treated me. Did they include me? Did they make me feel this way? It all is nurturing of what will become our sexual expression. And this aspect, the intense social rapport of sexuality, or the intense sexual rapport of sexuality, sexual development with society, and how society and the world pretty much will give us every single idea we will have about sex later, has been substituted by, because that of course includes the theorem of homosexual development, or sort of disproportionate sexual development, connected to how we were treated as children, what we learned from the world, what affect, maybe what chemicals were present, and during gestation. And there are all these scientific theories that have to do with homosexuality occurring. To what degree, how much is exacerbated by the societies and the psychological treatment we give children, how much is actual natural, maybe some way nature, even through our mistreatment of one another, is regulating the population and therefore mistreating children so that they become homosexual. Who knows? But in any case, they develop homosexuality. In any case, we have sort of silenced this whole scientific, social nurturing, psychology, and even before birth influences that may lead to understanding better homosexuality with a civil discourse, meaning you don't question anymore how, why nature, nothing to do with nature or how it happens to the, which is very odd if you think about it, because it's kind of like the only thing that we have decided to shut the lid on, we on scientific development. What we do is go out, reach out for a scientifically sounding supporting statement, or conduct a study to substantiate, to reinforce the civil social argument, but not that the scientific field provides how we're going to understand homosexuality civilly and socially. It's the other way around. We have come to make it the other way around. We have come to need to install a civil ideology that has to do with civil rights, individual rights of self-expression, freedom, da 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 da, and made it all about that, automatically forcing us to answer the first question, which is why, how, when does it develop? How, when does it develop? Why does it occur? Why the numbers? What leads to more or less homosexuality occurring in society? All that has been silenced, and so we basically substitute that conversation with an either born that way or not born that way. Otherwise, we can't have the civil, it be a civil issue. And, well, I'm not going to expand on to who and for what reason sees that as a free-for-all, basically, it's almost like saying, if you sprained an ankle, you can't come to the party, right? So the person, instead of assuming, well, I have so many other things to do in life, I don't have to go to that party tonight, but necessarily, and just be happy with the whole rest of life that he could do while his ankle is healing. We have decided to say, okay, make a ramp. We have to force a situation where that person feels identical to everybody going to that party, and we're going to make a mechanical dancing machine that he can hook up onto and make him dance, and and everything, so that we can make that person not deal with the sprained ankle, not deal with the reality of the ankle having been harmed, having been sprung, or and it's like he was or she was born with the ankle sprung, just so that they can go that night to that party. And so obviously, if you're the person with a sprained ankle, you're going to be beside yourself. You're like, look, at everything is for me, so I don't feel the pain. I get drugs, I don't feel the pain. I get to laugh and all this attention so that I can act like everybody else at the party. Of course they're going to be feeling like it's a free-for-all. But what would be the harder thing to do? The harder thing to do would be maybe to see a better way to heal that sprained ankle, or a way that would, that will not lead to permanent condition. The person will walk with a limp for the rest of their lives, or that would be the realistic way of assuming and being accountable for the fate that life has bestowed your ankle with, and maybe in a couple of months you will go to a party, and such as life is not that bad, and there's no reason to condemn and punish people with a sprained ankle, or see them as different. Anybody would have had a sprained ankle in his same position. So it's a very different attitude, to a very different way of looking at homosexuality. It's like something that nature does for a good reason. Doesn't mean that we would want it to happen to us, but it's nothing to feel sad or condemning or mean or anything negative about. It's something that we can own, and we can say, well, let's see if we can have a society where future generations won't have so many people looking for butt sex, basically, and just have have their sexuality fully fledged as their anatomy was designed to have them live. What is wrong with that goal? It doesn't. What is wrong with that goal if we don't condemn and are not mean and actually are totally normal and cool with everybody who sprained their ankle, or who whatever happened to them before or after birth and childhood that led to the development of something that perhaps we should all recognize it's not the ideal thing that we would automatically just as easily choose as if it were one or the other. Doesn't matter. That's not true. We have built a false way of looking at it just so that we can accommodate that person today, this very evening, to go to that party with a sprained ankle, which is absurd. It's basically denial. It's not wanting to do the hard work, not wanting to be more intelligent about and wise about the reality of that sprained ankle. Anyways, so that's basically my little dissertation for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.